Imagine, just imagine watching your entire city burn to the ground.
Yeah.
Like the walls that protected your family for generations they're breached. The temple, which is literally the center of your universe, is nothing but a smoking crater.
Right. It's completely gone.
Exactly. And your leaders, the people who promised you security, they're blinded and dragged away in these bronze chains. Your whole civilization is erased.
It's apocalyptic.
It really is.
Mm.
And sitting there in the ashes, or maybe you're miles away in some foreign exile camp in Babylon, you're left with this agonizing question, like, did our God just lose?
Right. Is the Babylonian god just stronger?
Or worse,
Yeah.
did our God just abandon us entirely? So welcome to today's deep dive. If you're joining us, you're probably the kind of person who wants to understand not just what happened in history, but why it happened.
Yeah, how ancient people made sense of their absolute darkest moments.
Exactly. And today we're unpacking a massive stack of sources, mostly centered around a really extensive survey by Chris R. Velasquez.
Which covers the former prophets.
Right, the biblical books of Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, and 1st and 2nd Kings. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yep.
Our mission is to figure out how to read this 600-year epic without feeling completely overwhelmed.
Which is hard because it is a massive block of text.
It is, and we want to see it not just as dusty dates and battles, but as this deeply connected theological masterclass. But to do that, we really have to discard our modern expectations of what a history book is.
Oh, totally. If you pick up a textbook today, you expect, like, a camera lens, right? Objective data, economic factors. But that is useless here.
Yeah, completely useless.
These sources are the definition of theological history. You're stepping into a mindset where a drought or a lost battle is it's utterly inseparable from divine action.
And the title kind of gives that away, doesn't it? Because in Christian Bibles, these are often just called the historical books.
Which primes your brain for that camera lens.
Right. But in the original Hebrew canon, they are the former prophets.
And calling them prophets means they have an agenda, a message.
Yeah, it's not a neutral logbook. I like to think of it as an ancient autopsy report.
An autopsy report. I like that.
Yeah, it's like a fallen nation pulling back the sheet on its own corpse to ask, why did we lose everything?
And to really grasp that, we have to look at the authors. The scholarly consensus is that these books form what's called the Deuteronomistic history.
Okay, unpack that term for us.
Sure. So it's narrative history written from exile, probably around 560 BCE. The survivors are sitting in Babylon surrounded by these massive ziggurats.
Right, just totally dominated by foreign culture.
Exactly. And they're trying to answer your question. Did YHWH fail? And the authors write back this devastating answer. No. YHWH didn't lose. We were judged.
We were judged. Wow. They write a 600-year confession.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because ancient empires like the Egyptians or Assyrians, they never recorded their defeats.
Oh, never. It was always PR spin.
Right. But here, they're taking full responsibility. So, to understand why the kingdom fell, we have to start at the very beginning of the nation's life in the land, which leads us directly into the book of Joshua.
Yeah, and this really jarring idea of promise.
Right, because we enter Joshua chapters 1 through 12, and immediately the text it throws a wrench into the standard ancient playbook.
It completely subverts it. If you're an ancient king invading a territory, your narrative is going to be about your military genius, right? Your iron chariot.
Yeah, your overwhelming power.
But the central theme of Joshua is that the land is entered by promise, not human prowess. God explicitly tells Joshua that his success depends on meditating on the Torah, not military strategy.
Which is wild. Read this book and you'll win. But wait, I have a question here.
Sure.
If God promised them the land, why is there so much emphasis in the later chapters of Joshua on unconquered land?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a massive contradiction?
Yeah.
God says, I'm giving you the whole land, but then they leave all these Canaanite strongholds everywhere.
What's fascinating here is that the remaining land motif is a deliberate warning. It's a warning against triumphalism.
How so?
Well, look at the Hebrew word for the land. It's nullah. It means inheritance. So the land is a covenant gift. It's not just property or an entitlement they earned.
Oh, I see. So leaving those enemies there is it's a permanent test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they wiped everyone out and had perfect borders, they'd just kick back and forget the God who gave it to them.
They'd get comfortable.
Right. But with enemies just over the hill, they are forced into this ongoing reliance on the giver of the gift.
That makes a lot of sense. And we see this dynamic of faith versus power play out with specific unlikely heroes, right? Like the battles of Jericho and Ai.
Oh, those two stories are brilliant side by side.
Yeah, let's talk about Rahab first. So Jericho is this massive fortress. Israel sends in 2 spies, and they end up hiding with Rahab.
Who is, by all ancient logic, the ultimate outsider.
Right. She's Canaanite. She's on the margins of society. She's a pagan.
Yeah.
But she's the one who protects them.
And her faith is astounding. She basically preaches Israel's own theology back to them.
Yeah, she tells them about the Red Sea.
Right. She says the terror of YHWH has fallen on the city. Because of her faith, this pagan outsider is grafted into the covenant community. She becomes an insider.
Which is beautiful. But then, you turn the page, Jericho falls, they march up to this tiny town called Ai, and we meet Achan.
Achan is the exact inverse of Rahab.
Totally. He's the ultimate insider. He's an Israelite from the tribe of Judah.
He has every advantage.
But during the chaos at Jericho, he sees a Babylonian garment and some gold, and he steals it. He hides it under his tent. And because of that one guy, Israel gets completely routed at Ake.
Right, 36 Israelites die, and the irony is brutal. The insider acts like a greedy pagan king, hoarding wealth, and the pagan acts like a faithful insider.
It's such a stark contrast.
Right.
But Achan's theft brings up something we really need to talk about because it's super uncomfortable for modern readers.
You're talking about the Urim?
Yes. Yeah. The Urim, devoted to destruction. Because at Jericho, God says every person, animal, all the wealth has to be destroyed or given to the treasury.
It reads very harshly today.
It sounds like state-sponsored genocide. How do we even process that?
Well, if we only use a modern humanitarian lens, we miss the theological boundary being set. The root of Urim is to completely set something apart. It renders it untouchable for human use.
Okay.
So in Joshua, this transforms these battles into highly charged liturgical warfare.
Liturgical warfare. Wait, meaning what exactly?
Well, think about typical ancient warfare. Why do you conquer a city?
To get rich.
Yeah.
To take slaves and gold.
Right. War is a profitable economic enterprise, but the Urim strictly forbids any profit. By making it holy to YHWH, God removes the economic incentive for war.
Oh, wow.
Israel wasn't allowed to enrich themselves. It was focused heavily on covenant holiness, not just tribal violence or territorial expansion.
And Achan tried to secularize it. He tried to turn it into a profit scheme.
Exactly. He violated the boundary.
Okay, so despite Achan, Joshua actually ends on a really high note. They have this massive covenant renewal at Shechem.
Right. Joshua says, choose this day whom you will serve.
And he were like, we will serve YHWH. They are all in.
They have the land, they have the law, the stage is set for a golden age.
Which is why the very next era is so giving you whiplash. I mean, society immediately collapses. You turn to the book of Judges, and it's the Dark Ages.
The structural failure is instantaneous.
Yeah. And we get this diagnostic cycle right in Judges chapter 2. Israel forgets YHWH. They get oppressed by their neighbors. They cry out. God sends a judge to save them. And then they relapse even harder.
It's a programmatic introduction to the whole era.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Growing up, I was taught these judges were like, an ascending team of all-star superheroes.
Right, action figures.
Yeah. But when you read the text, they're more like a leaky lifeboat.
A leaky lifeboat. I like that.
Yeah, like the nation is drowning. God throws them a lifeboat, a judge, but the patch is made of the same compromised material as the people. So every new judge is weaker than the last.
You can literally trace the devolution of their character. Just look at Gideon.
Right. Gideon starts out okay. He's scared, hiding in a wine press, but he has some faith.
And God reduces his army down to 300 men with just trumpets and torches, showing that salvation belongs to YHWH.
But then what happens after the victory?
That's where the leak starts. Gideon takes the gold spoils from the Midianites, melts them down, and makes an ephod.
He practically mass-produces an idol for his hometown.
Exactly. He gives way to fear, idolatry, and leaves this really mixed legacy. And then we move down to Jephthah.
Oh, Jephthah's tragic. He's this gang leader that the elders hire to fight the Ammonites. And he makes this foolish, traumatizing vow.
Whatever comes out of my house first, I'll sacrifice it.
And it's his daughter. It's awful. He thought he had to bribe God like a pagan deity.
It proves that religious zeal without covenant wisdom completely destroys families.
And then the lifeboat practically sinks with Samson. I mean, talk about raw strength, but zero character.
Samson is the embodiment of Israel at that time. charismatic giftedness without covenant holiness is ruinous.
He's just driven by lust and impulsiveness. He plays games with his divine calling.
And he ends up blind, enslaved, and commits a suicidal act to take down the Philistines. It's a wasted life.
But even Samson isn't rock bottom, is he?
No, the final 5 chapters of Judges are rock bottom.
It's a complete moral and social breakdown. You have private religion, like Micah just hiring a wandering Levite to be his personal priest.
Religious consumerism.
Right. And then the sexual violence and tribal civil war with the Levite and his concubine. It's too horrific to even fully describe here.
It really marks a total social collapse, and there's this chilling, repeated refrain through those chapters.
In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
That haunting phrase isn't just political commentary.
No.
No, it's a theological indictment. Doing what's right in your own eyes is the exact opposite of the covenant. It's radical, subjective morality, and it leads to brutalization.
It practically begs for a royal savior. Like, please, someone bring order to this madness.
Yeah.
Which propels us directly into the books of Samuel.
Exactly. But 1 Samuel doesn't open with a strong man on a horse. It opens with Hannah.
Oh, I love Hannah's prayer.
Yeah.
She's barren, she prays, and she has Samuel. And her song sets the whole theological tone. YHWH reverses the proud and raises the lowly.
That is the metric for the kings. But the people don't want that. Samuel restores the prophetic word, but the people come to him and demand a king.
Right. And the text says their demand for a king was seen as a rejection of God. But wasn't a king always part of the plan? Like back in Deuteronomy, why is it framed as such a massive failure of motive?
Because they didn't just want a king. They explicitly asked for a king to be like all the nations. They wanted a military figurehead to fight their battles, not a covenantal servant. They wanted a shortcut to security.
They wanted to trade a holy God for a tall guy with a spear.
Exactly, which gives us Saul.
Right, Saul. Who looks the part perfectly. He's tall, handsome, but his tragic arc is so sad.
Because his fatal flaw isn't military weakness. He wins battles. His flaw is his refusal to submit to YHWH's word.
Like the unlawful sacrifice. He gets scared because the priest is late, so he just does the sacrifice himself.
Right. Kingship without submission collapses. He treated the liturgy like a magic spell to win a battle.
So God rejects him, and we meet David, not as a flawless icon, but as the chosen shepherd king.
And the David and Goliath story is the perfect introduction.
It really is. And it's not just an underdog story, right? It's a theology of faith narrative.
Yeah.
It's entirely about who defies the living God. Saul is terrified because he's using pagan metrics. He's looking at Goliath's size.
But David reframes the whole conflict. It's a proxy war between the gods of the Philistines and YHWH.
Yeah. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. It's so powerful. And David ascends, he unifies the tribes, and then we hit the central hinge of the entire collection.
2 Samuel chapter 7.
The Davidic covenant.
Yes.
Yeah.
God promises David an enduring house, a dynasty that will last forever. It's the theological high watermark.
Which was the turning point of his moral collapse, so devastating.
This raises an important question, really, about power and accountability.
Because David, the man after God's own heart, commits adultery with Bathsheba and murders your husband Uriah.
He uses his royal power to take what isn't his and then kills to cover it up.
It's the ultimate abuse of power. And then Nathan, the prophet, confronts him.
Nathan's confrontation is a masterclass in the prophetic conscience. He traps David with a parable and points right at the king. You are the man.
In any other ancient nation, Nathan is executed on the spot.
Right.
But David actually repents.
But there are still severe consequences.
Oh, absolutely. His family breaks down. His son Absalom revolts. It proves that even though the covenant doesn't collapse, God's chosen king still desperately needs grace and discipline.
And eventually, David passes the baton to Solomon.
Right. And Solomon brings Israel to its absolute peak. But as we transition into 1 Kings, you realize that peak is built on a very fragile, incredibly steep cliff.
It looks dazzling at first. Massive wealth, international trade, the building of the temple.
I always think of it like watching a tech startup hit $1 trillion valuation.
How so?
Well, on the outside, everyone's marveling at their success. But looking closely at the books, you see they're completely bankrupting their core values to do it. They're exploiting their workforce and cutting corners.
That's exactly what Solomon does. He institutes forced labor on his own people.
And he engages in deep political compromise. He imports horses, marries hundreds of foreign wives, hoards gold, everything Deuteronomy said a king shouldn't do.
And we see the climax of this tension in 1 Kings. Chapter 8 is Solomon's beautiful temple prayer.
It's soaring theology.
But then you contrast it with 1 Kings 11, his apostasy. He builds shrines for his wives' gods right across from the temple. Privilege without covenant fidelity fails.
It completely crashes. Because right after Solomon dies, his son Rehoboam takes over, and the kingdom divides.
Following Rehoboam's folly, yeah. He refuses to lighten the labor load, so the north secedes. You get Israel in the north, Judah in the south.
And Jeroboam, the new northern king, he sets up a terrible prototype, doesn't he?
Yes. He establishes the golden calves at Dan and Bethel.
He weaponizes religion for state security.
Right. It's a prototype of syncretism and unauthorized worship, which the text calls the Bama, or high places.
Every Northern king after that is judged by that standard. But as the kings decline, the prophets rise up.
This is the era of Elijah and Elisha. They step onto the stage to embody the word of YHWH against royal apostasy.
Like Elijah just shutting down the rain to prove Baal isn't in charge.
Exactly. And the books of Kings measure rulers entirely by covenant loyalty, not political success.
Which is so countercultural. Like an economically successful king like Omri or Ahab, who built all these cities and had great trade.
They are deemed total failures theologically because they abandon justice and God.
And eventually the dual collapses happen. The north, Samaria, falls to Assyria in 722 BCE.
And 2 Kings 17 gives us the great interpretive verdict. Exile happens because Israel persisted in sin despite prophetic warning.
The south, Judah, lingers a bit longer. Hezekiah brings some reform and actually survives the Assyrian crisis through trust in YHWH.
But then Manasseh brings the darkest apostasy. He sacrifices his own son.
It's horrifying, and Josiah tries to fix it. He brings a genuine reform based on the discovered book of the law.
But it's too late. The structural damage is done.
And finally, in 586 BCE, Jerusalem and the temple are destroyed by Babylon. Total exile.
We've traced this incredible, tragic literary arc.
Yeah. But, for the modern listener, a huge question remains. Did this actually happen?
Right.
Like, how much of this world can we physically prove existed? That leads us straight into the dirt and stones of the ancient Near East. Let's talk about the archaeological witnesses.
Okay, but we have to set some ground rules. Archaeology doesn't prove theological claims.
You can't dig up a miracle.
Exactly. But it does converge beautifully with the geopolitical stage of the biblical narrative. It's about convergence, not proof.
Okay, let's run through the heavy-hitting artifacts. First, the Mernekta stele. Around 1205 BCE.
Yes, an Egyptian monument. And it contains the earliest widely accepted extra-biblical reference to Israel in Canaan.
It proves they were actually there, right when the Bible says they were.
Exactly. And then later we have the Tel Dan inscription from the 9th century BCE.
This one is massive. It mentions the house of David.
Cementing the Davidic dynasty in external history. It silences the skeptics who said David was just a myth.
And we also have the black obelisk of Shalmaneser III, which visually depicts King Jehu of Israel paying tribute. You can actually see an Israelite king.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the external Assyrian records perfectly align with the biblical claims.
Like the Taylor prism, or the Sennacherib prism.
Yes. The Assyrian king brags that he trapped Hezekiah like a bird in a cage in Jerusalem.
But he never says he conquered the city, which perfectly matches the Bible's claim that Jerusalem miraculously survived that 701 BCE siege.
Unlike Lachish, whose brutal fall is famously carved right into Assyrian palace reliefs.
You can see the siege ramps and the battering rams, and we also have the Lachish letters in Samaria Ostrika.
Which really bring to life the literacy, the military panic, and the economic bureaucracy of these ancient kingdoms.
But wait, what about Jericho? The source says the excavation dates are still heavily debated. We don't have a clean slam dunk there.
And that's true. Where the text and material evidence intersect, it's striking. But where they do not, like the precise conquest chronology of Jericho's silence or debate, is not disproof. Scholarship just remains divided.
Yeah, it's messy. But with all this history and archaeology laid out, we have to pull all the way back.
Right.
So what does this all mean? What was the ultimate point the authors were trying to make to their readers, and how does it ripple all the way into the modern era?
Well, we have to look at the deep theological themes.
Yeah.
And the original language really shows the depth here. Take the word ust,
Which usually gets translated as loving kindness.
which is too weak. Est isn't just kindness, it's fierce, stubborn covenant loyalty. God refuses to abandon his promises.
And then there's shub.
Right. Shub isn't just emotional regret. It's a structural, physical turning back to God.
So the core lesson of the entire 600-year sweep is that covenant faithfulness actually matters. YHWH governs history, and idolatry destroys nations.
And looking forward, there's a massive Christological connection, the failure pattern we've been discussing. It's deliberate.
Really? Like it's supposed to make you disappointed?
Yes. By showing that no judge or king is adequate, that every single human deliverer is flawed, the text creates a massive void that only a messianic figure can fill.
Oh, wow.
It anticipates a true Joshua bringing final rest, a true David ruling in righteousness, and a true prophet.
It sets up the New Testament perfectly. But even in Kings, there's this tiny glimmer of hope right at the end, isn't there?
There is. The very last sentences of 2 Kings. Jerusalem is in ashes, the people are exiled, but Jehoiachin, the exiled Davidic king, is released from prison.
And he's given a seat at the Babylonian king's table, around 562 BCE.
Right. In biblical theology, exile is discipline, not cancellation. That tiny historical footnote is canonically loaded with explosive hope. The royal line survives.
Which is so beautiful. And bringing it directly to you, the listener, this ancient text speaks so loudly to modern culture.
It really does.
Because it exposes the illusion that technology, wealth, or charismatic leaders can secure human flourishing without moral truth. We still fall for the Solomon effect today.
We do. It's a stark warning about leadership failure, the danger of privatizing worship, and the inseparable link between liturgy and social justice.
How you worship dictates how you treat the vulnerable.
Exactly.
So, to summarize this massive journey, the former prophets move from promise to possession, to probation to punishment, but never to abandonment. It's a masterful theological history that uses the failure of human kings to point toward a greater hope.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a lingering question to explore on your own.
Go for it.
We saw how the final scribe, sitting in the ashes of the Babylonian exile, didn't rewrite their history to make themselves look like the victims.
Yeah, no PR spin.
Exactly. Instead, they wrote a devastatingly honest account, taking full responsibility for their nation's moral collapse. In our modern era of constant PR spin and historical revisionism, ask yourself, what would it look like for a modern nation, institution, or even yourself to write an absolutely unvarnished, morally accountable history of your own failures? What kind of future could be built on that level of radical honesty?
Wow, that's heavy, but so necessary.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the former prophets.